Hi there, welcome to this week's Rounders Roundup. I'm Gaz, coming at you from a Brit Does Baseball Does podcast. I'm solo tonight, mainly because I made a bit of a meal of the recording time. So it's quite late on Tuesday evening when I'm recording this, but this is this week's Rounders Roundup. Quite a lot has happened in the last week of baseball. It's nice that baseball's finally back, and we're not just waiting for he looked good in spring training, he had a bit of a shocker. And even like the WBC stuff was fun, but we're getting into the dog days of baseball, and we're only like a week in. So quite a lot has happened, and I'm here to give you the rundown. No better place to start than we spoke about the rookies a fair bit last week. One more rookie decided to join the party as Connor Griffin, the 19-year-old shortstop prospect for the Pittsburgh Pirates, made his debut against the Orioles this past Friday. He had quite a good debut. This guy has been long touted and like the number one prospect in baseball, favorite for the National League Rookie of the Year. And he shone. I mean, the guy's an absolute tank. He hit an RBI double on his debut, which was good. It sort of passed all the eye tests as the Pirates swept the Orioles in his first homestand debut. It was nice to see. What do you guys think about Connor Griffin for the Pirates? I personally am a big fan from what the very limited parts of his game that I've seen. I fear for him on the Pirates, but that's more out of because I don't think the Pirates are great at holding prospects. I can just see them trading him away. I know he's just signed an extension, but they may look to get rid of that contract, same way as they're probably going to trade away Paul Skeens. But Pirates fans, this is the time to be excited. You've got a chance this year to maybe get a wild card, and it's looking quite good over in Pittsburgh. Lovely stadium as always. They've also started raising like a cone, like a traffic cone, for their home run celebration. So they started with a welder's mask, and then I believe it was Jake Mangum, who's the Pirates outfielder. He asked one of the clubhouse assistants to go and get them a traffic cone from some guys who are doing roadworks nearby. So I believe there's some merchandise coming out or is out at the moment that says "Hoist the Cone," which is hoist the colours is like a pirate saying from what I'm told on the street, and it's just cool that they've kind of got that merchandise "Hoist the Cone." It's a good time to be a Pirates fan. It's an even better time if you bet on Giancarlo Stanton to steal a base this year, because he did it. He stole a base. The first regular season base he's stolen since August 3rd, 2020. So we're talking almost 6 years ago, 5.5 years. He stole a base, and it was against his former team, the Miami Marlins. It was just a steal second. He didn't do anything crazy like steal home. But for a man who's got like perennial injured elbows, and I think he's maybe got half a knee ligament remaining, it's just amazing to see him steal a base. He did steal one in Game 3 of the 2024 Divisional Series against the Royals for the Yankees, but this was his first regular season steal since 2020. And it's just like, what a man to still be doing it with one knee and two elbows. So just a bit of a fun one there. But if you had the under-over line, I don't know what his under-over stolen bases were. I would assume it's 0.5. If you took the over, then you're in the money, and that's fantastic. We're going to move on. We're kind of a bit of a scattergun approach. A player who had a really good offensive season last year for the Angels, Joe Adell, decided to turn it on in a defensive way. In their 1-0 win against the Mariners, he robbed the Mariners of 3 would-be home runs. The first 2 were sort of standard. I don't know if you've seen the Angel Stadium before, but he was playing right field, and they've got a wall at the back, and if it goes above the yellow line off the wall, it's a home run, similar to what you might see at Chase Field for the Diamondbacks, but it's a lot lower. And then the corner of the right field kind of is a bit like Fenway, where there's like a knee-high wall. You can end up in the stands, which I'll get to in a second. But Joe Adell, he robbed Cal Raleigh of a home run in the second inning. Just sort of jumped. I'd say it was the second best catcher tonight. He did. I'll get onto the best one in a second. He then proceeded to rob Josh Naylor of one in the 8th inning, bearing in mind the whole game was 1-0 to the Angels. So, this is like really on-point defense. He robbed Cal Riley in the 2nd, Josh Naylor in the 8th, and then the catch of the game, he robbed JP Crawford in the 9th inning of what would have been to tie it up. and he made the catch as he fell over the wall into the crowd. Now, I wasn't aware of the rules, but because he made the catch in play, regardless of where he landed, it's an out. And you just saw JP Crawford look at him just with bewilderment, just like, what? You caught that? And it was just amazing to see. I mean, the Mariners' first base coach took his hat off and started clapping. It was just vibes, the whole thing, and it's just amazing for someone who wasn't lauded for his defense that much, basically winning the Angels the game. I think he still finished that game with 0 defensive WAR, which I thought was a bit harsh, but yeah, the fact that game ended 1-0 and Joe Adele was out here robbing homers left, right, and center was just really fun and really nice to see. And yeah, I think the day after, the Mariners wrote on their tactics board, "Don't hit the ball to Joseph Adele," like a bit in tongue in cheek. But it was nice that the Mariners got in on it because they've not had the easiest start to the season, and for, it's a division rival. But you just saw the reactions on their face, and it was a bit nice and wholesome. What wasn't as wholesome was Willson Contreras against the Brewers last night. As I said, I'm recording this on Tuesday, so Monday the Red Sox have been a bit on a slide, and I'll delve into that in a second. But Willson Contreras, long-time National League Central, so he played for the Cubs for a number of years and then played for the Cardinals. So he's played the Brewers a fair bit. He got traded to the Red Sox in the off-season, and he was hitting for the Red Sox, and he was against his old friend Brandon Woodruff. Now, Brandon Woodruff has hit Willson Contreras 5 times in his career up to yesterday. He got one up and in, and he got hit for a 6th time. And what makes this even funnier is Willson Contreras is a bit of a character, right? If he's on your team, you love to fight, you love the fire. If he's not on your team, you're like, just stop moaning and just go on base. And I'm not saying there was any ill will towards him from Woodruff and he didn't mean to hit him. It was probably an accident. But because it was the 6th time, Contreras was sort of giving it. And his brother, William Contreras, was behind the plate for the Brewers and kind of had to escort his own brother up the first baseline, which was just incredible. The managers came out, just sort of, words. Nothing serious happened or anything. But on the next pitch, it was a ground out. So whoever was after him, I can't remember who it was, hit the ball to shortstop. David Hamilton, I believe, who ironically was an ex-Red Sox and went across in one of the trades this year to get Willson Contreras over to the Red Sox. Sorry, he was an ex-Red Sox playing for the Brewers. And David Hamilton's got the ball, stepped on second, threw it to first, and Willson Contreras has done his best Manny Machado impression and just taken David Hamilton out. Contreras was out, but he knew what he was doing. He slid late, and Hamilton was there sort of limping off. And I just felt a bit bad for Hamilton because he was at the Red Sox for a couple of years before he went to the Brewers, and it's not his fault that Woodruff hit on him. Woodruff hit him for the 6th time. Contreras was just a bit angry, but it gave off slight Chase Utley vibes, and everyone's saying, it's just an old school way of playing. Unfortunately, we're in a time now where you can't be doing that. So Willson Contreras, you just take a chill pill, bruv. It's fine. People get hit all the time. But speaking of the Red Sox, I had them winning the AL East this year. Did I? No, I had them winning last year. I had them getting into the playoffs, so I had them and the Blue Jays neck and neck. It's not been a good start for the Red Sox. Their current record, they're bottom of the AL East. They're 2-8. They won their opening day game against the Reds and then proceeded to lose that series at the Reds. They got swept at the Astros, albeit in Houston. They then came home to Fenway for the homestand against the Padres. They took the first game 5-2, but then lost back-to-back games, and they're currently in the midst of a 3-game series with the Brewers, and they lost the first game 8-6 to the Brewers. What's gone well for them? Wilyer Abreu's looked really good. Garrett Crochet has obviously pitched like Garrett Crochet has. Sonny Gray had a great second outing after a bit of a shaky start. What hasn't gone well? The rest of the rotation. Ranger Suarez wasn't great for them in the first 2 starts he's had. Johan Oviedo has now hit the injured list. Not really sure what they're going to fill that with. Maybe Peyton Tole comes up. And, a 2-8 record, I know it's just been 10 games, but it's just the warning signs. Like Roman Anthony's come out this week and said, something isn't right. I know it's early in the season, but we really need to up our game. And the fact that they've probably got one of their youngest players coming out and saying that, I know they've kind of gone for a big churn and leadership on the positional players side. You've probably got Trevor Story and maybe Contreras, even if Contreras has only been there for, at this point, like 2 months. But for the fact that he's coming out and saying that, it's a bit eye-opening. It's just some of the eye test stuff. Like Caleb Durbin was the longest qualified hitter to have plate appearances without a hit, and he was meant to be kind of their third baseman. I guess that goes back to like Craig Breslow, who's the GM of Boston Red Sox, or president of baseball operations. He was an ex-Cubs. He led them to the World Series. This all stems from the Rafi Devers, Alex Bregman situation, where they had Rafi Devers in quite happily playing third base, not the best defensively, but was loving it in Boston. They went out and signed Alex Bregman and basically forced Devers into a DH only role. Played him a little bit at first, but there was a real public falling out there. Devers obviously then gets traded to the Giants start of last year. Bregman finishes a good year in Boston, a bit injury plagued, but he had a good solid year, and they're sort of all building up around him, and he hits free agency again, and there's talk of him going back to Boston. But a big sticking point was this no trade clause, and Boston wouldn't give him the no trade clause because, he's 32, he's got 2 young boys, he just wants stability for like the back end of his career. In come the Cubs, they swoop him up on a 5-year deal. I'm not complaining. I'm a Cubs fan. But since then, they kind of had a gap at third base, and obviously they've traded for Caleb Durbin from the Brewers, who had a really good season last year. But he's a sophomore. It's his sophomore season. I mean, the league's going to catch up to him, and I think they have. And it's going to be a bit of a waning out period. And unfortunately for Caleb Durbin, Boston fans are not known for being very patient. There were chances of sell the team in their recent homestand against the Padres and the Brewers. It's still, you can say it's only the 7th of April or whatever, and we're only like a week and a half into the season, but the warning signs are there for Boston, and I don't know if they can come out of this. What doesn't help is they're in the hardest division in baseball, the most competitive, because all 5 teams, even the Rays, they're a good team. All 5 teams in that division are good. The Yankees have come off with a really hot start. They're 7-2 after 9. Baltimore have been, they were good until they got swept by the Pirates. As I said, Tampa Bay are now 5-5, and then the other team, Toronto, are 4-6, which I'll get into a second. But to be 5.5 games back this early, with the Yankees looking as good as they do, it's a big mountain to climb for Boston. I hope they do get out of it. I like Boston as a team, but yeah, it's not been a great time. We moved from one AL East team that are struggling to another. So last week we spoke, it's the curse of the Rounders Roundup. Last week we came on this podcast and, the Blue Jays had set a 3-game series record for 50 strikeouts against the A's, and they swept the A's. But since then, it's not really been that good. It's not been that great for Toronto. Toronto are currently sitting with a record of 4-6 after 10 games. After the sweep of the A's, they went to Colorado and actually lost the series to the Rockies. So they lost that. One was a battering, that was 14-5. That was the game that who got injured for the Blue Jays. That was one of the games was when Cody Ponce went out injured with a torn ACL. So that was in the opening game against the Rockies. So they got battered by the Rockies in that game. But lost the series 2-1. They did win one of that. They got swept by the White Sox. One of the games was postponed. It was going to be a 4-game series. So they got swept by the White Sox in Chicago. And then they've come back to Toronto to face not a great team, only the Los Angeles Dodgers in a World Series rematch. And the first game they lost 14-2 with Max Scherzer on the bump. So there are some warning signs there for the Blue Jays. I still think they're an outfielder short. Obviously, missing out on Kyle Tucker was a big loss for them. Ironically, plays for the Dodgers now. Alejandro Kirk's going to be out for 6 weeks with a fractured thumb. Taylor Heineman came in and just looked awful defensively. But, that's just going to be the jitters. I'm sure he'll settle down. But here's a big loss. Cody Ponce is a big loss on the mound. The reigning KBO MVP, was really excited to see what he could do, and he looked half decent in the first few innings, but bit of a freak one. He just tore his ACL, so he might be back at the back end of this year, but it's tough, pitching motions and knees. They've just not been great, the Blue Jays overall. They're kind of missing a bat. George Springer's batting 150. Andres Jimenez leads the team with 2 home runs along with Okamoto. So, Vladdy hasn't really got going. Addison Barger, I think, came off the other day with injuries to both ankles. And Trey Savage and Shane Bieber, two of their, expected members of their rotation, if not potentially their, at least in your Savage's case, the potential to be an ace. It's not been a good time for them. And I don't really know where they go from here. Anthony Santander is going to be out for most of the year. If Barge is out, they've got a gap in the outfield. They need to start hitting more. It's kind of just, a bit of injury bad luck. And obviously, Alejandro Kirk will be back mid-May, end of May at this point. But again, the AL East is not a division where you want to be at the bottom of. And unfortunately for the Blue Jays, the signs aren't good. Again, we're only a week into the season. Are people overreacting? I don't know. It's a very negative Rounders Roundup this week. I think I started with all the fun stuff. A couple of teams are doing really well. The Yankees, as I said, started 7-2. They're running it back. They're looking decent. The Astros have been hitting the ball really well to begin the year, and maybe they're a bit of a sleeper hit in the AL West. Maybe they're going to swoop in and steal it from the Mariners. In the National League East, the Marlins have got off to a really good start. They were 5-1 at one point. They're now 6-4, but they're joint top of that division. Unfortunately for me, the Milwaukee Brewers are currently 8-2 and leading the NL Central. And again, even teams like Cincinnati Reds at 7-3, they've kind of snuck under the radar. The Pittsburgh Pirates have a winning record. Again, we're only 9 or 10 games into the season, so I'm probably overreacting a little bit. But some of these teams have looked good. In the NL West, it's the Los Angeles Dodgers. Of course, it is. They're 8-2. But one other team I want to touch on, Cal's team, the San Francisco Giants are currently bottom of the NL West. Even the Rockies have won more games. I don't know what's going on in San Francisco. We were really high on them. They got swept by the Yankees to start the year. Took two from 3 from the Padres, who I don't know how good the Padres are going to be this year. It's a real tough one to judge. But then lost 3 from 4 in the Mets. They took the opening game and then lost 3 straight, and they lost the opener against the Phillies. And this is all at Oracle Park. Oracle Park's a notoriously difficult place to go, and the fact that they're losing on their home turf, I don't know. They're 1-7 at home so far, but they have played the Yankees, the Mets, and the Phillies. Again, is it too early to get anything from this? I don't know. If Cal was on, he'd go head first into chatting about the Giants and what's going wrong there. I can't give you that amount of detail, but what I can say is the Giants are off to a bit of a rough start. Tony Vitello is off to a bit of a rough start as manager. He got his first ejection the other night. I don't know. I was high on the Giants, and Logan Webb can't do it all, I guess is my message there. But yeah, that's going to bring us to almost the end of the Rounders Roundup. As we now do each time, whoever's hosting will kind of take a couple of minutes just to talk about their own team. So I'm going to give you a bit of a Cubs update. Breaking news as of tonight: Cade Horton, who left his start the other day against the Guardians in the second inning with just like some wrist and forearm soreness. He's out for the year. He's going to have UCL surgery. Found that out sort of about an hour ago. Don't know if it's going to be like a Tommy John surgery or if it's just like a bit of work to the ligament like Justin Steele had. But it's a real kick in the teeth for the Cubs because at the moment we are not doing too well. We had a really, really easy start to the schedule. We had the Nationals and the Angels. We then went to the Guardians. We're currently facing the Rays. We come home to the Pirates, and then we're looking at teams like the Dodgers and the Mets in the second half of April. So we had a real soft landing. We lost to the Nationals 2-1, and the Nationals are not going to be that good this year. We beat the Angels 2-1, but again, the Angels I don't think are going to be that good this year. And then we lost 2-1 to the Guardians, who again, it's between them and the Tigers for the AL Central, but they're not a top team. I know Chase DeLotto's got off to a good start, but him and J-Ram, and that's about it. The offense just can't get going with the exception of Ian Happ. But yeah, Cade Horton missing the entire season is a real kick in the teeth. On top of that, Matthew Boyd, are probably second best starter behind Cade Horton. He's gone on the 15-day injured list with a bicep strain. Apparently, if it was later on in the season, he could have pitched through it, but because it's early on, he didn't want to, like pitch through it and cause more damage down the line. What annoys me a lot is that they've said it's only going to be a minimum stint. I don't know, I'm not a pitcher, but if you've hurt your bicep, then I don't think that's going to be a minimum stint. And, he got through his start. He just said he didn't rebound, and apparently he's thrown a bullpen and feels fine. But you're now putting that added pressure on yourself to get back. And then the Cade Horton injury comes out. Justin Steele's back in like a month or so. So the current rotation for the Cubs is you're looking at Edward Cabrera, Shota Imanaga, Jameson Tyone, Colin Ray, and the arse man, Javier Assad. Don't get me wrong, Javier Assad is the best pitcher since sliced bread, and he's going to win a Cy Young in his year, mark my words. But the rest of that rotation doesn't really fill me with confidence. Outside Edward Cabrera's looked good in his first 2 starts. I think he's allowed like 3 hits in like 11 innings. Shota Imanaga obviously can be really good. He's looking better this year. And then like Colin Ray is solid, Javier Assad is solid, Tyone can be solid. But that's a team missing an ace. And that's too much pressure on Edward Cabrera, really, who is injury prone as well. Chuck into that, the offense, just, Nico Horner's hitting, and like I said, Ian Happ has 4 home runs. The rest of the lineup, just Pete Crow Armstrong, man. The amount of times I see him chuck his bat in frustration, it's really disheartening to see. Like, he's got the power, he just keeps getting under stuff. Michael Bush had a good sort of first couple of games. He's really come off. Matt Shaw's hit a couple of home runs, which has been good, but there's just not enough consistent production from the offense. It's always like a little spurt here or a little spurt there. And then we get onto the bullpen, and I'll do this in 2 separate ways, in 2 separate categories. You've got Danny Palencia and the lefties. So Daniel Palencia, who is the Venezuela closer, who looked really good in the WBC. He's been lights out for the Cubs. You've got the 2 lefties, Caleb Philbar and, God, this is awkward, I'm going to forget his name. The new lefty we got from the range, Hobie Milner. They've looked solid. Philbar's looked really good. Hobie Milner's looked solid. So that's kind of like one side of the bullpen. Then we go on the other side, and you got Phil Maton, who's already given up two run home runs in his limited appearances. Jacob Webb, who seems to be throwing 83 mile per hour changeups middle, and unsurprisingly giving up hard contact. Excluding Colin Ray because he'll be in the rotation now. Who else we got on the ball? Hunter Harvey. He's been all right, to be fair. I'll probably put him in the middle. And then to top it all off, Ben Brown. I mean, Ben Brown, for those of you that don't know, former number 1 prospect from the Cubs. It's a starter by trait, but they've kind of converted into the bullpen. He's got 2 pitches, right? He's got a curveball, a knuckle curve, and he's got a fastball. Both pitches are plus pitches, right? I mean, the amount of swings and misses he's got on that knuckle curve have been disgusting. But when you've only got 2 pitches and you're a hitter, you're either sitting on the fastball or you're sitting on the knuckle curve, and it's 50-50 what he throws. So if he's landing them in the zone, he's getting smashed because people are just waiting for what they want to see. They know they're not going to get 4 fastballs in a row, so they're just waiting for that knuckle curve. On the other side, he throws you a knuckle curve. The next pitch is probably going to be a fastball. So they're just taking advantage of that. And then to top it off, it's the amount of just... He's supposedly developed a third pitch called... he's supposedly developed a sinker. I'm yet to see it. He tried to do a change-up last year. That didn't go too well. He's still young, and he still does do some nasty whiffs, or generates nasty whiffs. But I think the Ben Brown experiment, he needs to go back down to IR and just figure it out and just fully commit to that third pitch, because he's not got the Justin Steele stuff where he can rely on 2 pitches. That's evident now, unfortunately. But the real thing with him is just the amount of non-competitive pitches he throws. Like, he's hitting the dirt 40 feet away. Like, people are just not going to swing at that. I wouldn't swing at that, and I'm terrible. So if any Cubs fans, let me know what you think about Ben Brown, because I am not big on him. I think he needs to go to Iowa. I would be up for trading him and see what we can get back. Trade him to someone with a pitching lab. Trade him to the Rays. Just leave him in Tampa whilst we're down there. Because for me, it's just unplayable. And there was talk about him getting that 5th rotation spot if someone went down injured. He needs to stay in that bullpen at the very least. Like, 1 inning, we get away with it. But you're looking at him for a long relief option. He's unfortunately not the answer, which is a shame because he's a good pitching prospect. But yeah, I've probably spoke about the Cubs now for about 10 minutes, so I'm going to call it there. This has been the Rounders Roundup. Thank you so much for listening. I've been Gaz, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thank you and goodbye.